Hi everyone, it's Tox from critshappen.com. Thanks for watching and welcome back. We're here with another critical preview where we take a game that's about to be on Kickstarter, put it through its paces, and let you know about our experiences while playing it. Today we're going to look at Mobtown from 5th Street Games. This is designed by Danny Devine, and you may remember 5th Street Games from some other titles like Jungle Ascent or Farmageddon. This is an area control game designed where you have 5 different comical races of gangs. You're going to be vying for the use of snakes, weasels, sharks, rats, and foxes. And it's going to be up to you and your opponents to use them correctly to gain control of different areas inside of a modular city. But before we get too deep into gameplay, let me tell you that everything you see here is a beta and prototype copy, and it's not indicative of the final product should you back this on Kickstarter yourself. If you're interested in learning more about that, I suggest to check out their project page directly. We'll have links as an annotation at the end of this video, and there'll be a link in the video description below. But for now, let's grab our guns, let's grab our cheese blocks for the rats, and grab our pool cues for the sharks, and jump into the world of Mobtown. Now, we talked a moment ago about the types of gangs that are inside of Mobtown. There is a primary deck that you're going to be drawing cards from to then use these gangsters in the city. You're going to have snakes, weasels, sharks, rats, and foxes. They're all going to have numbers from 1 to 3 in terms of value. So this snake is worth 3 snakes while this rat is only worth 1. In addition, there's cold hard cash. Now this has 2 options. You can discard it as a wild card or use it as a wild card, or you can discard it and choose 3 cards from a lineup, which we'll talk about in a second. And then finally, there's the law. There's only 1 law card, and it is shuffled into the bottom 10 cards of the main deck. Each round, whenever the law is drawn, that's the end of the round, and that's when you're going to score points. There's 3 total rounds in Mobtown. Each one is going to consist of getting a new set of cards, picking new agendas, and setting out a whole new city. Now let's talk a little bit about setup of the game. So to begin the game, each player is going to get 12 ownership tokens in their own color. So the green player has green, red player has red, there's blue, and there's yellow as well. Now, there is also agenda stacks. Now, these are all of the same for each player. And at the beginning of the round, you're going to pick what 2 agendas you want to go after. They could be controlling the most theaters, the most hotels, the most factories, the most variety of properties, the most connected properties. There's a bunch of different things that you could choose from. But each round, you're going to pick 2 of those to begin with, and throughout the round, you could have the opportunity to change that agenda if things don't work out for you inside the city the way you want them to. Now, let's talk a little bit about city setup, because to me, this is one of the most fun parts about Mobtown and why it's fresh and new every time you play it. So the game is played with 2 to 4 players, and there are 20 total property cards, these gray cards that are in the game. In a 2-player game, we're going to lay out 12 cards. In a 3-player game, there's 13, and in a 4-player game, there's 14. But how you lay them out is very important. So the first card comes out, and this is a One-Eyed Jack's Gaming Hall. This has a value of 1 and is going to be required to have snakes and sharks to take over it. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But more importantly, because we're building the city right now, you want to look at the arrow. The arrow points to the left, so the next card that comes out goes to the left, another gaming hall. This one has an arrow pointing to the right. Now there's already a card here in place of it to the right, so we go to the next furthest right for the next card. So we put out another gaming hall. Apparently I didn't shuffle very well, or this is a high gaming area of the city. Now the next arrow goes down, so we're going to put the next arrow down, which is a factory. Then we're going to move the factory over to the left here for the next one, which is a hotel. And we're going to continue to do this. And again, so this one has an arrow moving up, so we're going to go above to the next slot. The next one is going to be a restaurant, so we're going to put the restaurant out here. We're going to shift these up a little bit so we get a little bit more space in here. Sometimes you get cities that are really tight, and sometimes you get cities that are really sprawling, and that's one of the fun things about Mobtown. So the next one goes to the right, which is another factory. The next one goes to the right, which is another theater. The next one's going to go down, so let's shift these up a little bit. It looks like our whole gameplay area is going to shift quite greatly here. So we'll shift the green player down here, and we'll move our city up. So we'll move these guys up a little bit so we have some more space. Now this was the last one we put in, so we're on card 10, which is the theater down here. The next one goes all the way back up to the top, and then the last one goes off and to the right. So this becomes our city. Now, as you can tell, each time you do this, it's going to be completely different, both in how you shuffle and what comes out. And in a case like this city, the center of the city is all gaming halls. There's only one hotel, so apparently they don't want people staying inside of the city to game very much. There's a couple of restaurants, a couple of theaters, and a couple of factories all spread out. So depending on what I chose for my agendas here, there's some options of what you can go after. So now that the city is set up, I can choose my agendas. Now, depending on what is in the city is going to determine what I'm going to go after here. Now, the gaming halls are really cool, but the gaming halls are kind of expensive. Now, I may want to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to take a risk here, and I'm going to choose the gaming halls, controlling the most gaming halls as one of my agendas. And then I'm going to look through and find the one that says connected, control the most connected properties. Since these are all next to each other, that would be a good combination. And I'm going to go ahead and choose those. Now, my opponent is going to do that as well. He's going to choose two secret agendas. I'm not going to know what they are. He very well may choose the exact same agenda as I do. He may choose completely different agendas. That's one of the fun things about the game, is there's so many different things that are happening. Now, in addition to this, the remaining properties are going to form a lineup. So we're going to take the remaining properties and form 3 cards into an extra little set of properties that we could bring into the city at different times throughout the game. We'll talk a little bit more about that and why that's so important. But let's talk about these gangs, how we're going to use them, and what we're going to do with them. Okay, now that we have the city set up and our open lot set up of extra property, we deal 3 cards from the main deck to each player, and then we lay out a 5-card lineup. So we have a shark, we have a fox, we have a snake, we have another fox, and we have another snake. The lineup is very interesting because the lineup is going to allow us to exchange cards from our hand to get more cards from the lineup. Now, let's talk about how you take control of areas of the city. To begin with, you're going to come in wherever you want on the city. So I can come in at this theater, I can come in at this restaurant, I can come in wherever I want to come in at. But once you own a piece of property, you're going to have to pay connection costs if you skip over other properties to go to other ones. So if I started in this theater and then wanted to go to this theater, I'm going to have to pay a connection cost to get through the factory and the gaming hall. But what are costs and how much of these things are they going to run us? Well, let's look at our hand. The green player has a shark, a weasel, and a rat, all at level 1. You'll notice on all of the properties there are the gang symbols on the bottom. So there's a rat and a weasel on this factory. But remember, I wanted gaming halls. So there are also sharks and snakes on all of the gaming halls. And you'll notice that there's affinities, I guess you could say. Rats like restaurants, sharks like gaming halls, foxes like theaters, weasels like factories, things like that. So on my turn, each player is going to be given a reference card. You have a couple of different options. You can take any one of these following actions. You can draw 2 cards from the top of the deck. You could trade 1 card from your hand for all of one other type of card in the lineup. And what that means is I could take both the snakes, the 2 and the 1 snake, and trade it for a shark. That would leave 4 cards in the lineup, and you would flip a 5th card out on top of that as well. But it's really important to know that you can trade 1 for many in that case. If those were all 5 snakes, I could trade any 1 card, get all 5 snakes, and that would be my action for my hand, which would be really good. Then you can cash in. You can discard cash, which is going to allow you to choose any 3 cards from the lineup, whether they're the same or not. You can also, if you have cash in your hand, use it as a wild card for any of the gangs. You could then take over one of the areas of the city. And to take over one of the areas, you have to discard the total value in combination with the gangs on that card. So to take over the gaming hall, the gilded 8-ball gaming hall here, I would have to discard 4 points worth of any combination of sharks and snakes. So I could discard 1 shark and 3 snakes, 1 snake and 3 sharks, or 2 of each if I wanted to. Now, as you can see though, I don't don't have that. And I want to be able to build up to be able to get those gaming halls. So on my first turn, I might actually say, you know what? I'm going to discard a rat to the lineup, and I'm going to take both the 2 and the 1 snake. Now that's going to leave 4 cards in a lineup, so we're going to go ahead and put a 5th card out there. I would get these 2 cards in my hand, and that would be the end of my turn. Now on my next turn, what that's going to allow me to do is come into the city and possibly take my 3 snakes and my 1 shark and put a ownership token on that gaming hall and go ahead and discard those and take control of that area. Now what that means is, at the end of the round, when the law card is drawn from here, if I still control this area, I'm going to get 4 points. But it also is going to lead me towards my agendas as well. And every agenda that you score, you're going to get 3 points as well. The challenge, of course, is other people are going to be competing with you and possibly have the same agendas. Now, let's talk a little bit about connection costs. Let's say I had later on in the game this shark and this shark in my hand. So I had 3 shark and 1 weasel. And I wanted to come over to this gaming hall. If once I'm in the city, I have to go connected to, I have to take over things connected to the area that I already own. If I want to jump, I could do this, but I have to pay an additional value for each property skipped. So if this was not owned by me and I wanted to come here, it's not just a value of 3 in any combination of sharks and snakes. It's a value of 4 because I'm skipping 1 card to come here. So the better play for me would be to go here and discard that 1 shark and be able to take control of that and slowly move over. But what would happen if, let's say, my opponent had snuck in here and taken over this? Well, then I have a couple of different options. I can either take control of the gaming hall and pay the cost of the connection cost, but instead of discarding, I have to give the connection cost to my opponent, which is pretty painful. More importantly, though, I can take back control of this gaming hall, but I have to take control of it by paying the value of the gaming hall plus the value of any tokens. So this now is a 2 value gaming hall, not a 1. But it's only a 2 value when it comes to the cost to pay for it. At the end of the round, it's still only worth 1 point when you score. So if I wanted to discard my 2 shark, I could do that, and then I would put my token on top of my opponent's token. Now it's very important to remember that you're going to stack them up like that, because now that is a 3 cost gaming hall that my opponent could take back, but again, it will only be worth 1 point at the end of the game. You're going to continue to do this by taking actions, drawing cards, taking control of different areas, vying for control, and beating up on each other to take control of different areas. And as you can imagine, in a 3 and 4 player game, there's a lot more interaction even with the players getting connected to each other. Now, we talked a little bit about this open lot with the extra properties. One of the really nice things about this is that there's 3 briefcase tokens. These are very important throughout the game. You're only going to be given 3 throughout the whole game, so you're going to want to use them very sparingly. But at any point on your turn, you could use the open lot as one of your actions. You could discard a briefcase token from the game, take any one area in the open lot, and put it anywhere in the city adjacent to one of the areas here. So let's say we were later on in the game and my opponent had taken control of these 2 gaming halls, and that one over there was just getting way too expensive for me, and this one was getting way too expensive given the value of the hall. I could discard a briefcase token and I could bring in this gaming hall, and then when I bring that in, I have the opportunity to immediately take control of it. So if I have the value of sharks and snakes, I could not only bring it in, but I could then take control of it and put one of my tokens on there as well. That could help you, depending on what your agendas are, to later in a round score a very quick property and make sure that you secure your agendas. Then another property is flipped out. That fills up the 3-card open lot and you continue on. The final action that you can take on your turn is swapping agendas. Let's say after all of this, my opponent had this set up and I had this set up, and I'm like, okay, I'm losing the gaming halls. He's obviously gone after the gaming halls. He's got a better setup than I do. I can take my action for my turn, swap my gaming hall, and come back here and say, you know what? I have 3 factories. I am going to take control of factories for my agenda and switch out my agenda. Now my opponent doesn't know what I've switched for the agenda, but he might have a good idea seeing that he's taking control of all of those gaming halls. Once the law is brought out, then that's where everything stops and that's where you score points. So if you were to look at this right here, if this was the end of the game, the green player would have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points from properties. So he would move up to the 8 spot. The red player would have 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11 points. He would go up to the 11 spot on the track. Then you would check agendas, score points, 3 points for each agenda. So let's presume the red player scored an agenda for 3 points and went to 14. But let's say I was somehow able to score 6 points and get up to 14 as well for my agendas. We would then be tied. You can go around and get additional chips where you have 25 and 50 points, so you can show that you've crossed over on the threshold on those. And then once that's done, all of these chips come back to the players. You're going to take all the property cards and you're going to shuffle them up again. You're going to deal out a whole new city, a whole new set of cards, a whole new open lot, and a whole new lineup for a whole new round of Mobtown. So that's Mobtown. Mobtown at its core is an area control game, but it's combined with resource management, and the resources being those gangs and the cards in your hand to make sure that you're getting what you need to take control of what you need to take control of to get the most points, but on top of that, make sure you manage your agendas. Everything wraps together very nicely inside of Mobtown, and it is an extremely easy game to teach. We opened this up and we're playing within about 10 minutes, and we were already teaching it to our younger gamers within about 15-20 minutes. It's very simple to understand. The numbers are not very big, so if you're going to be playing with a family with smaller children, it's very easy for them to add up together 4, 3, 2, or 1 and take control of what they want to take control of. You don't have to play with the agendas if you're going to play a family game. That's something you could leave out and just try to take control of the city. So there's some modularity and flexibility there that's really nice as well. The artwork is great. Even though this is a beta and prototype, the artwork is really colorful, it's very eye-catching, and it's very different. It's a style that really doesn't strike me as reminding me of any other type of game, and I really like that. It set itself apart that way. But more so than anything, I really like the strategies inside of this game. When we were playing, you never know what's going to happen at the beginning of the game because the cities are always going to be laid out differently, and I really love that simple modular setup of how the board comes together. We've had cities that are really, really tight and almost just like a grid, and then we've had some that are really, really sprawling, all within the same game because they're different each round, and that's been really fun. But the strategies of where do you come into the city and start taking control of areas to maximize your agenda points, then reacting to your opponents and what they're doing and trying to thwart them while you're still trying to get as many points as you can. But more so than anything is when things start getting tense and together, when you start taking control of other people's properties, trying to maximize, are you really just hurting them, or are you benefiting yourself, or are you doing both? And then do they have some dastardly plan where they've head faked you and made you think that they're going after this stuff, you go after it, and then they come in and take over a whole other area and get a whole bunch of points. There's so much fun and deceitfulness in that it makes it for a really enjoyable time. Overall, we have had an absolute blast playing Mobtown. This has been one of the best 5th Street games that I have personally played, and I really do like Farmageddon and Jungle Scent as well, but I really think that this has a very good chance on Kickstarter to be very successful. If you've liked it, we'll have annotation links at the end of this video for their project page as well as in the video description below, but we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to leave your comments in the description below. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google Plus by searching Crits Happen, or you can join in the discussion at our homepage at critshappen.com. But until we see you next time, we hope that you enjoy all your city controlling times inside of Mobtown. Thanks so much for watching. Keep rolling those dice, and we hope they're all crits.